Good afternoon, everyone. We'll just wait for a few more seconds for everyone to come in this informative, exciting presentation that we have set for you today in terms of how to turn your side hustle into your main hustle. My name is Jesus Padilla, the Assistant Director here at the Florida SBDC at FIU, along with my colleague Brian Van Hook, Regional Director of the Florida SBDC at FIU, that will be doing today's presentation. Just some general housekeeping items. This is a recorded webinar, so all attendees that will be present today will be receiving the recording and the presentation as well.
Mhm.
Then in doing so, if you have any questions, concerns throughout today's presentation, definitely encourage you to put them in the Q&A and also throughout the chats. So like that, we'll be more than happy to answer any questions, concerns, or even what type of side hustles you're thinking to start and provide the different tools for you to be successful on that route as well. Then once again, it is recorded webinar, and my colleague Mariana will be providing several links, several information that will definitely assist you with the next steps and just make sure that you have a great experience in today's webinar. So without further ado, Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesus, and thank you to everybody for being here. This webinar, as Jesus mentioned, is how to turn a side hustle into a main hustle. So we're going to cover a number of different things in terms of side hustle ideas, kind of formally establishing the businesses, things that you need to know. We're going to give some real case studies. So we're going to make it like very interactive and hands-on for you guys in terms of kind of like taking maybe an idea that you have or an existing business that you've been working and trying to make it more formalized. So let's get into the presentation. As Jesus mentioned, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Also put in the chat like who you are, what you're hoping to get out of the webinar, and we will put some information at the end in terms of if you would like to meet with one of our consultants to kind of get more hands-on assistance. And also we'll share a copy of the presentation with you as well. So without further ado, let's get in the presentation. Real quick, like who is this guy talking to me? As Jesus mentioned, I'm the regional director of Florida SBDC at FIU. Originally from Louisiana, I have over 20 years of experience working with the federal government, also with small business issues. And so I worked in the United States Senate at United States Department of Commerce. So I've worked on national small business policy, but also kind of like we're talking about today, individual businesses that are looking to grow access to capital, navigate some of these programs geared towards small businesses. So I'm happy to share that information with you guys. A little bit about the Florida SBDC network. We're a national network of over 1,000 small business development centers, and we're funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. So you are going to see some SBA links, some SBA information in the presentation as well, because they have some really good information on their website, especially around business planning, strategy, access to capital. And here in Florida, there's 9 Florida SBDCs around the state. So we're part of the Florida SBDC network. So it's okay if you're not in Miami-Dade County or the Florida Keys, which is the area that FIU covers. There's 8 other centers around the state that are really good that you can get connected with. The Florida SBDC program, we focus on one-on-one business consulting. So we have consultants that are all experts in different areas, ranging from startup assistance, access to capital, international trade, marketing and growth, government contracting. We can also get you access to market research, data, information, and then we offer trainings and workshops like the event that you're in today. So definitely, we'll give you like our information on our social media channels, our website, so you can see more about the program and how we can help you. So really proud of our team. We have a really great team, both here in Miami-Dade County and also in the Florida Keys. So this is the consultants that do all the hard work. Overall, it's 18 business specialists in different areas. And like I said, they're here to provide assistance to you, no cost to the service. And they're really, really good experts in those particular areas, so they can help you. Just real quick about what we're talking about today. We're very outcome focused, impact focused. So we're really proud. This is the numbers that we've been able to provide from 2014 through the end of 2025. Specific to the topic today, I want to highlight that in Miami-Dade County, we've launched 624 businesses successfully. In a given year, we launch between 90 to 95 new businesses. In the Florida Keys, we've launched 71 new businesses. In addition, we've assisted with access to capital, government contracts, increasing revenues. So definitely, it's a win-win situation. Like our job is to help you grow your business. And then I mentioned like the Florida Keys. This is what the numbers we've done since October 2018 through 2025. As I mentioned, we've helped launch 71 businesses in the Florida Keys, in addition to access to capital, government contracts, and increasing revenues as well. So for the presentation, I just want to give a disclaimer. This is the information is intended to provide you with details on entrepreneurship, the steps that you want to take to start a business. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. I don't know all scenarios, all circumstances that are unique to your particular industry or your business. So there might be some things that you want to follow that's not included in the review, including like legal or tax issues. So if you want a better understanding of anything on legal or tax for your new business, we would recommend that you consult with your tax or your legal partners so that they can provide you with some additional information in those areas. But we're going to cover a lot of information, but I did want to give that disclaimer at the beginning. The presentation is going to run about 45 minutes. In terms of the focus for today, we're going to first discuss entrepreneurship and what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Next, we're going to outline some business basics and some potential side ideas, side hustles that are pretty common. And then lastly, we're going to provide you with actionable steps and key resources that you can start your business the right way. But really big focus, guys. I'm just like you. I watch other videos. I've been to trainings. I've been to events. So I see what people are talking about and what they're not talking about. So we did try to make this particular presentation a little bit different than some of the other ones that are out there, talking about some of the things that are not highlighted, or really drilling down on some of the things that our consulting team sees every day working with businesses. So we're going to really give you guys some good actionable information. So getting into the presentation, most people that have a business idea, whether it's like your full-time job, like a side hustle, you kind of get in action by indecision, where you're not sure where to start, what to do. So let's just start out. What is an entrepreneur? Basically, as the slide says, entrepreneurship is the activity of setting up a business or businesses taking on financial risks in the hope of profit. So, by definition, as an entrepreneur, you're a risk taker. You're basically taking risk with the hope of profit. So, the presentation today is to help you make that risk, but make it more of a calculated risk. So, you have all the details, all the best practices, pitfalls, things like that. So, we really want to set out making you like a very informed entrepreneur. Just want to reiterate for folks, whenever you're coming up with a business, remember, you don't need to be like the professor, scientist in the lab with the beaker, coming up with something, getting a patent, doing a bunch of stuff. You don't need to create a new product or service to be successful. Most of the successful businesses, they didn't create that new product or service themselves. They brought in a new strategy or innovation to existing products that were or services that were in the marketplace. So, for example, some people don't remember that Amazon used to be just an online bookstore. But basically, they didn't invent bookstores. That goes back hundreds of years. But basically, they came in and they were basically a big disruptor innovation for traditional bookstores. Now, obviously, Amazon sells everything, not just books. When we talk about mobile phones, obviously we talk about Apple and iPhones. They didn't invent the iPhone. They basically saw an existing product and they were able to innovate on it and be very successful. Same thing with Nike. I know Nike, is a name. It's a Greek name that goes back a long way, but they didn't invent like running shoes. They didn't invent athletic apparel. Um, Walmart didn't invent like retail stores, they just innovated it. They had some good operations and processes. Also, yogurt has been around for thousands of years. Basically, Chobani yogurt didn't invent it. They just came in and had like a new way to do yogurts, packaging, those type of things like flavors. Um, when you're following this strategy on basically looking what's in the market and coming up with an idea, the benefits is that you don't invent something new, so it's lower cost for you. and then you see an existing market, you can really do an assessment. You can identify competitive weaknesses, market opportunities, so that gives you a competitive advantage. And you can come in, like the little logo says, you can come in and price below somebody if that makes sense for you and helps your bottom line. So you can have a lot of advantages to coming in and not having to create something from scratch. In terms of side hustles and main hustles. So there's some basic considerations we want to talk about when you're starting a side hustle. So some key questions that you need to ask yourself is, first off, do you have any unique skills or talents that's going to excel in this business? For example, are you a painter? Are you a photographer? Are you good at coding? Are you basically, are you, are you good at cooking? So do you have like particular skills or innate talents that are going to help you and kind of set you and your business apart? Second, more like on the training and professional side, do you have contacts? Do you have training? Do you have professional background in a particular area? Have you worked in the IT industry? Did you work in the airline industry? Have you worked in logistics? Sometimes some of those skills and information that you pick up, those things would really help you with your business. When you're talking about side hustles, also need to start back with your day job. How many hours do you work a week? Is it a very demanding job? Do you manage a lot of people? Do you manage a lot of projects? Are you traveling? Because for that, you need to think about how much you work at your real job during the week. So how much time can you spare for a side hustle? You need to factor that in because some people do start a side hustle and really try to jump in with both feet and they get overwhelmed. So you really need to manage it. Find something that's going to work with your schedule, with your, work-life balance. Lastly, you want to basically also factor in for the business. Is it something online? Is it in your home? Are you going to require office space or storage space for the business? Those are some basic factors that you need to think about because it's going to help you to game plan for the business. It helps you to factor in expenses. It helps you to factor out like what you're going to need, how many hours do you need to do it. So those are some basic things. This is something that I have not seen in any other presentations, so I do want to highlight it. It's very important. If you're keeping your day job, you should also research your employer's policies around outside employment or business interest. Like I said, this isn't necessarily highlighted in other presentations, but for example, if your company has a conflict of interest policy or disclosure rules around investments or business interest, you might get into a lot of trouble with your current position. So it is a basic thing that you would just ask like your HR representative and just ask. It might be something where you're just disclosing that you have an outside business or that you have an investment in a business or something like that. It would be pretty standard, but you want to fully understand what is allowed, what is not allowed, and disclose it before you're launching the business because you don't want to launch the business and then go back after and then like, hey, you're not supposed to do that. I would also mention if you work in educational institutions or nonprofits, you might also want to ask about intellectual property. Sometimes if you're employed with a particular company or an educational institution, a nonprofit, if you're going to do a business that is related to that type of business that you're working full time, there might be some issues with intellectual property. So those are things that you want to research. As I said, talk to HR, talk to your operations office manager, like those type of things. Just get all the information before. Do it more of like a fact-finding thing. You don't need to say like, "Hey, I'm about to start this business, in the aviation industry or something." Just ask them like, "Hey, I just want to know in case I ever want to start a business down the road." It's very, very important. And then lastly, under no circumstances should you use company resources or company time towards starting or running a side business. That's the best way to lose both businesses is to start a side business and use your work laptop, use your phones, the electricity, the lights, those type of things. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't use any kind of inside information, anything like that. It's best when you're working a side hustle to have something that is different than the business that you're being employed on and scaling into that business. And then as that business takes off, then you can either scale back your hours with your current job or quit your current job and focus on the business you're starting. But very important, I don't see that covered a lot in a lot of presentations. So I really want to mention that. You can have a side hustle, you can start and grow a business, but you need to basically make sure around your company's disclosure policy, conflict of interest, like those type of things, intellectual property. Um, also, what I see online a lot is where people are not talking necessarily about scalable ideas. What they're always talking about is the $1 million idea, make $10,000 a month, $50,000 a month, grow the business to $3 million. So I don't see where people are starting at like start small. So I do want to like highlight kind of the best way to do it. Like we said, if you're researching online, if you're using AI tools, you're going to regularly see articles and videos and classes that are selling $10,000 a month, or more for the business models, where they're basically selling you that you can make $10,000 a month, $1,000 a month. I'm not here to say that those don't work. I think they have a lot of case studies, they have a lot of examples, but I think what you need to realize for some of those programs is, especially like if it's a program you have to register, you have to pay money, basically their business idea is that they're selling a business idea that they have. So they're basically making money on that. Um, Definitely not discounting making money. Making money is good. You can provide for your family, you can have a better quality of life. Obviously, like helps you to have more money coming in, helps with like cost of living and things like that. But there is three things that you need to remember. Number one, what time and effort can you reasonably devote to this venture and still maintain that healthy work-life balance? You need to have that balance on it. Otherwise, you're going to get burned out. Second, from what we've seen, the most successful entrepreneurs are starting with a product or a service that they're passionate about, something that brings joy to them, or if it's a solution to a challenge that they have faced. So when you're thinking about your business ideas, really put a lot of time into something if it's personal to you, something that addresses a problem in your life, something that you're passionate about, whether it's cooking, whether it's electronics, whether it's something else. Most of the successful entrepreneurs that you talk to, they're going to tie in their business story with something personal. That makes them better when they're selling. That makes them better when they're marketing the business, but also it keeps them engaged in the business and they're doing something that they love. So for me, that is the best way to make it not just a business that you're making money, that you're like, I gotta go work on the business. It's something that you're passionate about, that is something that's sustainable long term. Lastly, like I said about $1 million ideas versus scalable ideas. A great strategy that I've seen mentioned online a number of times is to chase small dollars first, work up to the big dollars. Don't start working on something that's that you're trying to get $1,000, $50,000, whatever. The more money you make, there's more expectations, there's more rules, there's more commitments, there's more things. If you're chasing small dollars and you're working up to the big dollars, that way you're able to scale the business and you're able to scale it up organically, naturally, that you're able to basically build the business where it's easier to manage. So it's not getting out of control. You're not having 50 employees you have to manage. You're not having to manage all these orders. You're kind of growing it organically and scaling up and building in the operations and the personnel and the procedures that you can basically manage that over time and be successful. So definitely look for business ideas that you can start small and that you can scale up over time. That also works well with what we talked about in terms of managing your full-time job if you have one and having like your side hustle that you're working on the side. That strategy works really well with that. You're getting paid, you have benefits and things like that, but you're able to start a side business and grow that side business, make it into something that eventually maybe you want to take, devote your time to that full time. So there's a lot of lists online in terms of breaking down like common side hustle ideas. It does kind of break down in terms of some of the dollar amounts where they're like, this is big money ones, these are smaller ones, these are whatever. I did include kind of what are the most common ones available. Like if you're looking at different lists and different things. Obviously, guys, there is a lot of Reddit, chat rooms and subreddits and things like that. Some of those are really good because those are people that have actually like started a business or had experience. So it is really a good place to find some different ideas or even feedback on things that people have tried. In terms of the common side hustles, it does kind of break down in some different buckets. So obviously freelancing is pretty popular right now. A lot of people talk about virtual bookkeeping, web design, freelance writing, data entry. Most of these are on Fiverr and Upwork. A good strategy around that is to be very, very specialized, be very narrow, and use the platform as like a starting point to get clients and then taking those clients kind of like off the platform eventually and kind of building it into more of a formal business for that. Also, I've seen a lot where people recommend if you're getting on Fiverr or Upwork and you're doing any of those type of freelancing, where you basically create a package that you position yourself and you're going to sell, but get 50% upfront as kind of like a down payment and then get 50% upon deliverable. So that way you're not going to get where they kind of like you do the work and you don't get the money. It is also a way for you to kind of manage quality, manage your customers. So kind of create like some different package tiers. And then basically the expectation is as part of the package, 50% upfront, 50% at the end when you complete the deliverables. So that is a good way to manage it. Like I said, but that's Fiverr, that's Upwork, that's freelancing. In terms of local service businesses, we're going to talk about in a minute, but junk removal, debris removal, those are good ones because you can do that with as easy as like a car, a pickup. Obviously, if you have like a pressure washing machine, you can go out and do that. Landscaping, we're here in South Florida, gardening, those are things that are local service businesses. Those are more profitable than you think, especially when you build up regular clientele or contracts and things like that. A good side business as well, especially for South Florida is like party rentals, where you're renting like jump houses, cotton candy machines, like those type of things, where you're basically renting it. It usually would be like a weekend gig where you're dropping off and you're picking up, but you're not having to be there and like manage it like full time. Also, any type of equipment rental. So if you're renting like pressure washers or renting other things like that, some people just go to Home Depot to get that, but sometimes there are businesses that rent those different types of equipment. And then you're just managing and keeping up with the equipment. Um, One way also kind of similar to freelancing is like doing tutoring, high school tutoring, middle school tutoring, where you're tutoring maybe if something where you have a lot of education, a lot of experience, you're able to work with students. That is something, and that's usually something you can work with within your network or within your circle of friends, where you can kind of get going. Obviously, a lot of the folks that do tutoring are teachers, so they're current teachers at schools, but former teachers, folks that have worked in academia, that is a good opportunity. I know Udemy is also where you can do kind of on-demand courses and do that. You can make a lot of money doing those online trainings and things like that. Um, Additionally, we mentioned about folks that have like the knack for cooking or for being a chef. Food-related businesses, you can start small with like cottage food products. Also, you could be like a mobile food vendor. Those are things that you can do, sell in farmers markets. If you're interested in that angle, we have a really good webinar that's on our YouTube page that's focused on food trucks and food business, food like vendor businesses and kind of the steps that you need to know on that. So you can actually check it. You'll see our YouTube page link at the end. And then lastly, I do want to mention this one hasn't been mentioned as much from what I've seen is, we have a lot bigger, the silver tsunami that folks talk about, a lot of aging population, but focusing on non-medical care for seniors. It's something badly needed in the community. It's something where it's going to growing demand for the services. If you are able to do it as a side hustle or make it a more formal business, that is an opportunity to really make some money. You're not, like I would stress, you're not doing medical care or kind of like assisted living facilities and things like that. Mostly like doing companion services, running errands, tech support, moving services. So moving, elderly residents into like another location or assisted living place. That is badly needed services in the community. And I would say it's also providing a community good for our neighbors and our family members. So I would say that is also another area that is an opportunity. It is something where you could have a good side hustle and turn it into a main business as well. In terms of some specific examples, I do want to mention two examples just to give you like some real life examples of people that have taken a side business and scaled it up. First one would be Junk Teens. Junk Teens is a couple of brothers. They're based in Massachusetts, Kirk and Jacob McKinney. They're basically focused on junk removal and reselling items. They launched the business in 2021. They were basically in high school. One of the brothers was big about going to the garbage dump and basically, getting different items, refurbishing them, selling them on the Facebook Marketplace. I think he was inspired. He got like a speaker and it was like a really good speaker that he was able to get and like refurbish. And they was kind of hanging around like the garbage dump and talking to folks, and he was seeing how many people had things they're dropping off, and how they had a big need for that. So he's able to work with his brother and basically put together $4,000 from like cutting lawns and doing other things, selling things. They got basically a used pickup. And we're able to use the used pickup and start doing like junk removal. So this business is a good business because basically they charge between $300 and $600 per job. In 2025, just to show you how they scaled up, they did 5,500 jobs in 2025. So now they have 10 full-time employees, 15 part-time employees. As the name of Junk Teams implies, they like to hire college and high school students to help part-time with the business and kind of work into the business. Um, and they currently have now 5 dump trucks. So they scaled up from $4,000 just a used pickup up to 5 dump trucks. For that particular business, basically in 4 years, as of 2025, it had scaled up to 3 million in revenue. And they're projecting, I think, to go to 5 million in revenue in 2026. So you really see that there's a demand for that service, and they were able to scale it up. And it started from a side hustle, and it grew into like a full-time business, and they're bringing people in the business. They're basically doing more outreach on it and some of the operations. So really, it's like a good example of, especially we all have junk in our house. We know, some folks in your neighborhood might have a lot of junk. So imagine if you could get 600 bucks, 800 bucks, to go do that, like working with some other folks to kind of help clean up. Would mention this is number two. This is Omi Foods. They're based in Canada, out of British Columbia. It's Jenny and Han Yu. They both worked in health tech, and they were new parents. So they basically were, as a lot of us during COVID, new parents, were basically working in their jobs remote, and then basically had like a 1-year-old baby, and just noticed that during COVID, like a lot of us, they were kind of not having the best eating habits. So they gained weight. They wanted to try to get healthy, and they were kind of focusing on breakfast and kind of fruits. So they were able to buy like um, a freeze dryer, and they tried different fruits, and they put it on like yogurt, like oatmeal, like other things. So they didn't have a food background, though. I want to stress it to them. They didn't have a food background. They had that health tech background, but they just wanted to be healthy. So they were basically able to kind of work from their home. Eventually, they worked up to like a commercial kitchen, and they did start selling at farmers markets. And they really liked farmers markets because they were able to get like direct feedback from the customers on the product, on the packaging, on the marketing, on the branding. So they were able to get a lot of good feedback on that, and they were able to refine the product and also build their story and their brand. So they started that business similar to Junk Teens. They started the business with $5,000. That was basically to cover the freeze dry equipment, the commercial kitchen lease that they were using, and basically some initial ingredients. So they've incorporated AI into the business, like most businesses now, to be competitive, to organize the data, the sales as the business scaled up. And as of the first year, they generated $100,000 in sales, and they expanded into retail, wholesale, online direct to consumer in year two. So they've scaled that business. I believe they're at the same level. They're probably at like a 2 million, $3 million in revenue as well. So grown from a kitchen, basically just two young parents, basically growing the business up. They have a great Instagram page, so they've really been able to grow up that as well. So those are some case studies. Those are some common side hustles. So what I want to get to next is I want to talk to you about if you're looking to start up a business, whether it's again like a full-time business you're going to run or whether it's a side business. Let's talk about like the key steps that you're going to need to take. So these are kind of the key steps that you're going to want to do. Obviously, you want to have a good idea. You want to flesh it out. You want to do planning. You want to finance that business, and you want to successfully launch. So when you're planning the business, you're going to need to do some key actions. Understand your market, develop a business model, and create a business plan. So understanding your market, that's basically consumers that have unsatisfied wants and needs, and they want to basically buy from you. So as an entrepreneur, You need to set out to fill those needs by offering top quality and a great service at a fair price. One of the great advantages of being a small business is you have the ability to really be on the ground and know the market and adapt to those market needs. You can gain direct experience with a market by working in an existing business or by networking with peers in your industry. Actually, we have one of our clients that's based in the Florida Keys, and they were looking to get into the restaurant business. And they actually worked at a restaurant that they were looking to buy, and were able to work with the owner and kind of see the operations and see what they did and kind of understand everything and really get a handle for the business so that they could make a good decision when buying in the business and also that they could, really like take it and run with the business. If you don't have access to that, if you can't go work in a pizza restaurant or go work in a, freelance business or, those type of things, retail or services, you can basically do the research on the market via market and industry research. So that can be in person with consumers by you and your team, or you can use public databases such as the Census Bureau, the Federal Reserve, Department of Labor. You can get a lot of those links from the link that we're sharing with you at the SBA's website. I would mention also you can get access to a lot of information on your home computer, obviously through AI now, but you can also go to local libraries. Local libraries have a lot of information. They usually have computers with like access to some of these databases. So you can actually get a lot of like research, like market research, industry data, those type of things. You can basically get that from the library. When you're looking at the market, you want to look at potential demand, market size, market competition, your pricing, and your location. For the business model, you want to look at your value proposition, also your go-to-market strategy. The value proposition is basically what is your clear and compelling statement on what unique value your company is bringing to the market. So, for example, what do you offer to the customer? What needs are you satisfying? How are you different from your competitors? The go-to-market strategy is your step-by-step roadmap on how you're getting your product or service to the customers. So that's a little different than the marketing strategy, as it involves like tactics to achieve your value proposition, set you apart from the competition. Your go-to-market strategy should be consistent with your marketing strategy, though. So you definitely want to focus on what's your target market, identify your customer, show how you're going to reach those customers, and then outline the pricing models. So I'm not going to get too much into it, but we are going to provide you with some links where you can look up business models, value proposition, go-to-market strategy. So we'll send this to you after the webinar. In terms of business planning, this is where we see most businesses kind of fall off track or kind of stop with the business because they think that they need to write like a 500-page business plan. And they're like, I don't have time for that. I don't have the expertise. You need to understand that the business plan forces you to be specific about what you're going to offer. And it also might be mandatory when you're talking to a banker or to an investor. But don't let the idea of drafting a business plan delay your opportunity to move forward. So we're going to talk to you about how you can get kind of from the idea phase into like a business plan. So these are standard, if you're writing like a standard business plan, these are the standard like headers or titles that you're going to use, like an executive summary, personnel, operating procedures, industry, competition analysis, customers, products and services, marketing, and then also sales and strategy, financial breakdown and optional appendices. So you might put some additional things, different marketing, like background on your team, like those type of things. Depends on every business is different what you put in there. But that's for like a traditional business plan. One of the things we recommend is to use a business model canvas. This is basically like a one-page document that doesn't replace a business plan, but it does help you to get your ideas on paper, kind of get those creative juices flowing so that you can get started on your business. So we did include some links in the presentation to some different business model canvas templates that you can use. So one of them's from SBDC, one's from SCORE, and the other one's like another template that we found. And then when you're ready to write your business plan, just understand that it's going to be tailored to your audience. So you're going to have some similar things to like a Fortune 500 company like Ford or Apple that we talked about or Walmart, but it doesn't need to be as complex as them. So you're really going to use your executive summary to catch the reader's interest and draw in potential partners to read on. And the executive summary usually is done after you complete the plan. So you complete the plan and then you kind of do the executive summary to sum up what you've already put in there. So we did include a couple of resources on business plan writing, basically a business model versus a business plan. So we included some additional links for you that you can use after the webinar. So very important on the financing side, before your business launches, you're going to basically have some bills to pay. So what you need to do is calculate your startup expenses. That could depend, like as we talked about, whether it's bricks and mortar, whether it's a service business, whether it's online. Um, but what you're going to do is you're going to start with a list of key expenses that you anticipate having when you're going to launch the business. So that could be like office space, inventory, equipment, licenses, insurance, like salaries. So you're going to estimate these type of expenses, break them into like one-time expenses and monthly expenses. For example, one-time expenses might be, um, if you're buying like a printer or whatever, monthly expenses is like your rent, utilities, if you're buying ingredients or if you're buying like something to make products, you need to calculate at least 1 year of monthly expenses, but you should project out like 3 to 5 years. It's even better to show for like projecting for financing. Also, if you're talking to bankers. So you want to basically have those. So we did include, there's an SBA template that's basically a fillable PDF spreadsheet that you can use. So we did include the link in here as well. And then now that you're calculating your startup expenses, it's time to consider how you're going to fund it. For most businesses, you're going to start with bootstrapping. So you're going to have some savings, kind of like the other folks that we talked about. They didn't necessarily take out like a loan to start. They basically were able to save up some money and kind of get started. Because for when you're bootstrapping, you're going to retain ownership and control over the direction of the business. But just be aware that when you're using that method, you're assuming all the risk, like we talked about, that could impact your personal finances and could delay retirement if you're not careful. So that's why I was stressing earlier about finding a business idea that is scalable, that you can kind of scale it up based on your resources, based on your time and availability. Other financing options, obviously, like the friends, family, or fools, mission-based lenders. You could get a loan from SBA-backed loan from like local lenders, commercial loans, venture capital. So there's a variety of different ways, depending on your industry, depending on your connections, in terms of how you can fund the business. I would say on the access to capital side, we have a number of webinars on this as well, focusing on kind of like small business grants and financing, where we go through like the whole system, the whole group, telling you like pros and cons of each one. So would encourage you also to check out our YouTube page for that because we do have like a full webinar on that. In terms of your startup tips, there's basically just a couple steps that you can do to make your business legitimate. First, obviously, you need to choose a business name. So you would want to research on Sunbiz. Does somebody already have that particular business name? You can do a Google search as well and see if it's out there somewhere because you wouldn't want somebody in your state or in your area that has a similar name. You want to pick what's your business address. There are like enhanced PO boxes you can use. There's a couple of other things you can do if you don't want to put it as your home address. I know if you're going for government contracting, they don't really allow that anymore for you to use an enhanced PO box. I think they do require that you use your home for that. You would create your business entity, obviously register your business, get any particular licenses or permits, and then get your employee identification number. The EIN is basically your social security number for your business. So that is something that you would want to get when you're ready to like make your business legitimate. Very important is opening a business bank account. You don't want to mix your business expenses and your personal expenses. It's something like I'm channeling your accountant or your bankers. You want to have like separate personal and business accounts and basically expenses. It is easier also to show what you're investing in the business, like kind of what you're taking out. At the right point, you could get a business credit card or a microloan. Obviously, build up your business credit, set up your books, create a website, get a business phone number that's dedicated. Nowadays, you can use like get a Google number that will come to your phone. or eventually you can get like your own phone that's just for your business, and then register your businesses with like the relevant online services. So kind of breaking down some of those steps and giving you more details. When you're basically looking to incorporate, there's three major forms of business ownership: sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. Depending on your product and service and your industry, some business structures may have advantages. You want to factor in includes like personal liability, taxes paid, paperwork required to file with the government. You do want to consider those type of things. Like for example, if you're in the cosmetics industry, cosmetics very litigious. Somebody just rubs a cream on their hand, they get a rash, they come and sue you. So you do want to really research your different business structures and things like that. Um, and what we did do is we say that you should consult your attorney or your accountant for any guidance on considerations for that venture. The SBA also has a chart that compares different business structures. So we did include that link here. Obviously, Sunbiz is the website that you go for the state of Florida. The website does have startup resources, legal forms, other things that you can do for your business. Really good website. The IRS has some really great information when you're starting a business, including like tax forms, startup resources, how to get that EIN number. As we mentioned, that helps you to register a business entity, get a business loan, open a bank account, and is needed for tax and filing purposes. If you're starting a business in Miami-Dade County, for example, the county has a good website to help you launch your business. So that covers like permitting, licensing requirements. So we did include the link in there as well. Where your business is located, you also would be required to get a local business tax receipt and occupational license. You also might need a certificate of use for your municipality. So just be aware that the timing is that the county issues those local business tax receipts for 1 year starting in October, and it expires on September 30th. So we're doing the webinar now. You would want to do it on October 1st. So then you don't have to pay basically now and then again on October 1st. And then you should also basically get your local business tax receipt. I think they are working on like where you don't have to display the local business tax receipt anymore, but I don't think it's been passed yet as of the time of doing this webinar. You also want to check the county website wherever your city you're living for any additional business information or requirements. Big shout out to our YouTube page. As I mentioned a couple times, we've got a lot of great content on the YouTube page. Recorded webinars on startup assistance, on food trucks, on access to capital, on marketing, on AI. So generally they run about 30 to 45 minutes and you can watch them, at on demand at your own time, in your pajamas with a cup of coffee, hot chocolate, however you want to watch the video. But really good content. And we definitely we're going to post this video there as well. So would encourage you to check it out. And then we did include some additional business planning resources from Sunbiz, from webinars from the SBA, State of Florida regulations. So we will get you guys a copy of this. And then the last thing I would ask, like our kind of call to action, is if this has been helpful to you, would encourage you scan the QR code, register for consulting. You can meet with one of our consultants. They can work with you one-on-one to help you kind of take some of the stuff you've learned today and apply it to your business. So I'll leave up the QR code there for a minute. I know we are going to put in the chat as well how to register with the center. Also would encourage you check out our website. You can give us a call, shoot us an email. Also, we're on social media, so you can check out our YouTube page, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn as well. So definitely check out all those different channels. We've got a lot of content. We post upcoming events. We post information. We highlight client stories that we've helped. So we have a lot of really great information for you. And then before we wrap up, we just would love to hear any questions that you guys have. So let's see if you have any questions. Okay. So let's see. Any questions?
No, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. So like that, I'll be able to moderate them on your behalf as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and like I said, guys, start small, scale it up. Don't overthink it. Take advantage of available resources that we have, such as us in the community. But definitely, we're here, but we're also very collaborative. So if there's other folks in the community that we can refer you to, we're always happy to, as well. So would encourage you take a minute to fill out the poll. Just give us some feedback. Was the content good? Anything you change, anything I didn't cover, just let us know on your end because this does help us to make better content, better presentations for you guys. Um, so just really appreciate you guys taking the time to participate in the webinar. We just love to put out content like this. You will be getting a copy of the presentation, and we'll send you some additional information as well that's relevant to this topic. So with that, just thank you again for your time, and we'll go ahead and wrap up.
Right. All right. Thank you everyone, and speak to you soon.
Mhm.
Have a wonderful day.